We're now ready to prepare our opening balance sheet for our net change entry approach for loading trial balances. So as a reminder, in this example, we're going to load our December 2022 opening balance sheet into NetSuite as a journal entry, and then we're going to load the incremental changes using the transaction list. So this video is really going over just that first part of loading the trial balance. So this, and one thing I just want to point out at the very beginning is this spreadsheet is available in the class notes. I'd highly recommend that you download this and you can follow along. And then I've also already gone ahead and downloaded my December 2022 trial balance. If you don't know how to run trial balance out of QuickBooks, that's also available in the class notes. So going back to my spreadsheet here, I'm going to go over how this spreadsheet is set up so that you know and can configure it for your instance. So I would recommend to start is going into NetSuite and pulling up your own journal entry template so you can see what the required fields are and make sure that each of those required fields has a column in the spreadsheet. And so I've gone ahead and done that already, and I've hard coded some of those values in. So for example, I know I need to map everything to the parent subsidiary, and I've set that as the internal ID is 1. I've set the currency to be US dollars, and that internal ID is 1. And then I know I have a workflow running, and I just want to put in that the approval status is approved, just as a reminder to make sure that I do set that field. And the rest of these values are all coming from formulas that I'm going to go over in a second. And before we get started, I'd also recommend that you update this is kind of a tab where I've got the internal ID pulling for my vendor, my import AP vendor and my import AR customer. So you'll want to make sure and update these to reflect the internal ID in your instance. And then here's my account map file that I've just pulled into the spreadsheet so I have it for reference. And you'll obviously want to update this to make sure it's your map that you have, and make sure that you keep these rows or the columns set up the way that I have them. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into our December 2022 trial balance. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the accounts and the debits and credits, and I'm going to copy and paste those into my spreadsheet. And I'm going to take these rows and just copy it down. And I'm going to just change the color. And so as a reminder, right, what we're doing, right, we're loading the beginning balance sheet as of 12/31/22. And then we're going to load the 2023 journals. So there's really two ways you can do this, right? If you have an accounting period configured in NetSuite for 2022, you could leave this as is, where you would just leave the accounts, the P&L accounts mapped to your P&L accounts, and that way when it crosses over into the next fiscal year from 22 to 23, NetSuite will automatically reclass those P&L accounts into retained earnings. That's one way to do it, but that assumes that you got the 12/31/22 period configured in NetSuite. The way you can tell is to go to Setup, Accounting, Manage Accounting Periods. And here we can see, all right, in my instance, I've got 22 and 23 configured. If you don't have all these periods, then it's pretty easy to set up full year. And you go through the steps. It's very simple. So in this case, we're going to just, let's assume that we're going to post this in 2023 because I want to show you what I would do. If you were going to load this to 12/31/22, this is in perfect shape. There's really nothing else you need to do. If you're going to just post everything to 2023, what you need to do is change these P&L accounts that are income and expense. You need to hard code those to go to retained earnings. And so all I'm going to do is change that NetSuite account ID to be 52. And I'm just going to hard code that in. And now I can see that the NetSuite account type is equity, while the QuickBooks account type is the income and expense. Okay, so with that, we're now, because we're only loading a single journal entry, we're pretty much ready to go. We can save this file. I would recommend, you're going to want to save an Excel file, which has got all your formulas and the support. And then all you need to do is then take this tab, and we're going to make that into a CSV file. We'll do create a copy. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this as a CSV. And we'll just call it whatever. I'm going to call it optimal data journal entry upload. Click save. And now that file is what you'll use to actually upload into NetSuite, which you can do since you've already watched my section on loading CSV files. All right, in the next video, I'm going to go through how to run the transaction list out of QuickBooks Online and prepare our journal entries with that approach. We'll see you in the next class.